Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Orme. I am the Associate Director at Wiltshire Creative, and I am joined by our Artist of the Week, Tom Sherman, an actor and teacher. And I guess we're just here to have a little bit of a chat. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Dave. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all. We're living through some very strange times at the moment, and I think we're all we're all trying to find our way to cope, and we're all having some very new experiences. I just, yeah. So hopefully we'll get there. I wonder how are you doing during this time? How are you managing?
Kept keeping myself busy. I've got a full timetable of teaching, which is great. It's great that we've been able to continue that. But it's also nice to have the family around. I've never seen so much of my children. They're normally out and about, but so that's been quite pleasant in some ways. I'm sure they found it totally tedious, but there we go.
So I suppose you've kind of started on something there. I think as some people will know, or as some people won't know, you teach on our further education course that we run at our venues at Wiltshire Creative in collaboration with Wiltshire College. Perhaps you can talk us through what that is.
Yes, well, 7 years ago, the then leader of the Take Part department, Mark Powell, along with Louise Dancy, who's our current director, got together with Wiltshire College and University Centre, as it's now called, and put an offer of this performing and production arts course together. It was recognised that at the time there wasn't such provision in the city, and they thought, what a better way to introduce young people to theatre and the arts than through a producing house, which was a great opportunity. We take students at 16 and we run a variety of different levels, of course, from level 1 to level 3. On the now UAL specification, which is very practical. It's a practical course. We do 4 or 5 projects a year, and the students are taught on each of these projects. So effectively, through their research and their rehearsal process, the teaching is done as part of that, and then they get to put on their performances, and that might be in one of the Wiltshire Creative venues, such as the Arts Centre or the Salberg, and occasionally, very occasionally, even the main stage at the Playhouse. But we also tour to schools, so they put on their performances and then they evaluate. So the actual structure is kind of, say, quite relevant to how the industry itself works. Now, the wonderful thing about this as well, being based in the venues, is that the students get to benefit from all the wealth of professional experience that is around them. So we are frequently visited by members of staff and even visiting actors and directors and writers who come and contribute to their learning. So it's a great way for them to get a really deep insight into the industry and the variety of careers on offer. We've had the executive director come and talk to us, Sebastian Warrack. We've had head of finance come to talk to us. Even your good self, Dave, has contributed to the students' learning experience. And I think that's what really sets this course apart from perhaps your standard college course, is the connection and the proximity to the professional industry. And not only do they learn about the performing side, but they also get to learn about the production side as well, which is really rather crucial, I think, because sometimes you go in with this tunnel vision on what a career in the arts is all about, and you neglect to appreciate the amount of collaboration that goes into putting on a production. So they also learn about stage management and lighting and sound. And all those various areas of the industry, and even then such things as operations and working with volunteers. So they get a really good grounding. So it's a really great stepping stone if they wish to take this further into whether they go off to drama school or university. It just gives them a kind of a holistic idea of what the performing and production arts is about, really. Sorry, I felt I rambled.
Oh no, very interesting. Thank you. But just one thing I wanted to kind of touch upon that you mentioned earlier was you talk about the students being, meeting all these different artists, these writers, professional members of the staff who work at the Playhouse. Thank you very much for your kind words. It's the first time someone has said I've contributed to learning before in my life, so that's really great. But it's worth pointing out that actually you yourself are a professional actor who works quite regularly as well, and you lead this course. And I wondered, just for a bit of context for us, for those of us who might not know you so well, what is your background? How is it that you became an actor?
Well, I think like many people, it starts off when you're very, very young. I went to a school which had a theatre that got in lots of touring companies, and from there I thought, this is what I want to be. So I went to university and did a degree. First of all, I did a theatre arts degree at Aberystwyth University, and it was very practical, which is what drew me to it in the first place, and because I was all about the practical side. And I was fortunate enough there to get involved with professional productions that were happening in the town and summer seasons. And from there, I thought, this is definitely what I want to do. And I thought, well, I need to push my understanding of technique and skills. And this was a time, obviously, when things were funded, and it's much harder now. But I was then fortunate enough to be able to go on and get a place at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, where I trained for 2 years on their now foundation acting degree. And met a lot of wonderful people and trained under some very skilled practitioners, developing voice and singing and movement and acting technique, as well as mime and mask, and working in a variety of different genres of theatre as well. And it's a great course as well, because it's very much based on working out in the community and putting on shows in professional theatres, much like the course that we run here is. And from there, I went out into the big wide world and continued to learn. I think that's what I really did. I went in and spent a good couple of years working in theatre for children and young people, and learning an awful lot about clarity of narrative and telling stories and engaging your audience, and about and developing that technique, and then went into working a lot on classical plays such as Shakespeare. I did 7 seasons, I think, plus at Shakespeare at the Tobacco Factory in Bristol, working on many of their productions. And I think it's quite interesting that I was drawn to these two genres of performance. I think David Wood, who's a very well-known children's theatre practitioner and playwright and director and actor in his own right, once said of performing in children's theatre is harder than Shakespeare, because there are many actors who are afraid to get up in front of such a volatile audience that has no theatre manners. And then who's the other? I think Peter Hall said that performing in Shakespeare is like an Olympic course in acting, with regards, again, having to engage your audience and clearly telling a narrative and using your voice and breath and demonstrating a command of the English language better than I'm demonstrating now, I'm sure. They are those two kind of totally different genres of theatre taught me a great deal in my kind of throughout my acting career, and then throughout that I was fortunate enough to be cast in a number of radio plays and dramas at the BBC, and did voiceovers for television and radio. And I think what stuck with me throughout my career was those little light bulb moments, especially going into schools, and well, I always felt really blessed going into schools, swanning in, as it were, and delivering a performance and engaging all these young people, and yet realizing that the teachers putting up, doing so much hard work, and they just kind of sit at the back of the hall, sometimes thinking, I could do that, I could teach that, and I knew they could. I knew they could. And my respect for the teaching profession grew and grew, and I started writing for children's theatre and putting on plays that went into schools and venues around the southwest, and I got to know more about education, and ultimately it led me to taking the step into training to become a teacher. I think I just had a young family, and I thought, well, it'd be good to settle down rather than swanning off again and leaving my wife in the lurch. So I trained to become a teacher, and rapidly decided that I wanted to give back and enthuse young people about the performing and production arts as much as I had been inspired by the various directors and teachers that I'd met throughout my career, and just to continue to get that thrill that I'd received from being an actor, but kind of nurturing that creativity in young people. And so I trained to become a teacher, and I think within 2 years I was working at Wiltshire Creative, which was Salisbury Playhouse just then, and the course was originally set up by Marnie Forbes Eldridge, and I was lucky enough to take over from her as course leader, and throughout the life of this course, we've had teachers on the course that have all had professional work in the past. So I'm really grateful for Wiltshire Creative, because they let me go out and practice my craft still. So I still swan off and do some panto every now and again, and voiceover work, and gave my widow Twanky last year, and maybe Sarah Whittington next, who knows? But and our production arts teacher as well, because we have a specialist production arts teacher, Sarah Bath, who's a trained lighting designer and lighting operator, and she works a lot out in the industry on events and in television, working on shows such as Children in Need and those things like The Voice. I'm not sure it is The Voice, but that kind of program. She's out there and she's experiencing the industry firsthand. And so, again, another long answer, Dave, but I kind of, to reiterate your point, that the staff bring that kind of added value to the course, and that current knowledge of the industry and its workings and practices, and hopefully, because of that, we, as I said, it can enthuse the students more about a life in this rather precarious career at the moment. But yeah.
Lovely. Well, it's great to hear that there is this beautiful blend between you as an actor and as a teacher. It isn't this Jekyll and Hyde personality. But just to bring it back to the kind of the teaching side of things, we know that teachers are a group of people who, during this time in particular, have been working exceptionally hard to ensure that young people remain engaged in education, and that there is something there and that they are providing for them. And the work they're doing is amazing. And of course, you're still teaching as well over online. I can imagine teaching theatre is a difficult thing to do in a video call, but I just wonder how's that been going?
That's a very good question. How has it been going? It has been going okay, actually, surprisingly okay. I think things that we're able to achieve, we still continue with our daily warm-ups, and we can work on technique. But the real difficulty is the not being in the room, and getting that collaborative kind of energy in the space. I think there's not, you can't get away from this screen that's constantly in front of us, and that has been our biggest challenge to overcome. But the students have been surprisingly resilient, and it is challenging for them. And I know we've just come out of the back of Mental Health Awareness Week, and it's difficult for them, and they struggle. And we have our online sessions, but we also have I set up little social sessions, so it's not just all about the skills and development, but about just having time to talk and to chat and talk rubbish, which I think is also equally important. So that's important. Now, in terms of the art itself, they have been becoming increasingly creative in terms of how they use the technology that we've got available to us. We do run, as part of the course, sessions on acting to camera. In fact, in the final year, we do a little acting to camera and audio performance project with the students. But this has kind of brought it all to the fore, because they're having to think about the size of their performance in front of a screen, not to being too big or too small, depending on how close they are to the camera, and in that respect, thinking about their framing in a camera shot, whether they're being close up or they're going for a mid shot, and how they engage with that technology, and thinking about camera angles. So they're thinking not only about acting to camera, but they're thinking about being kind of a director of photography almost, and operating their own equipment. And they're thinking about how else do we collaborate, and some people are using these meeting platforms that we've got available to us to create little narratives. One story being created that's like a little horror story that happens on a conference call, which is quite surreal and very amusing. And then there's someone looking to do an online version of Come Dine With Me, which I think is going to be very interesting. And then at the other spectrum, we've got people who are trying to explore physical theatre over these conference call platforms. So they are. It's actually a nice challenge for their creativity in some ways. So, and it's good that so many of the students are actually engaging with it, and they realise its limitations, but they're thinking, "Oh, we're going to make the best of this. We don't know how long we're going to be here." So, there's an awful lot actually online now that people are creating in this current climate. I think there's some casting calls going out left, right, and centre for pieces that have been acted on Zoom and such like. So it's actually good to see people aren't kind of sticking their head in the sand about it, but they're actually embracing it and making the best of a bizarre situation.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. Great. And obviously, the young people that you engage with, they are on the cusp of kind of launching a career in the performing arts, whatever that might be. And you mentioned earlier as well that sometimes there's a lot of trepidation about pursuing a career in the performing arts. And you and I both know that there are a lot of myths surrounding work in the performing arts. And I think for any young person who might be listening or thinking perhaps about joining the FE course, I wonder, what would be the top myths that you would look to bust, essentially, about working in the performing arts?
That it's going to be an easy ride. I think that's the biggest. I mean, current situations highlight that, but it's that people who succeed are people who work hard and are committed. You need to have passion, but you need to have drive, you need to have energy, you need to have focus, you need to keep working and pushing and talking to people and networking. You cannot sit back and rest on your laurels and just assume that work will come flooding at your front door. It's a very, very minute number of people in the profession who are working out there have had that happen to them. It is all about graft and practicing your craft and developing your own kind of style of performance and understanding who you are and yeah, just to put yourself out there. You cannot rest on your laurels in this. That's the key.
Great. Thank you. It's really great to hear you advocate for the virtue of hard work. I think that's really, really important. A lot of people assume that, a career in performing arts is based on luck or somehow knowing someone, which, it is not true. It is about hard work. It is about really putting in the time. So it's great to hear you say that. Um, Along with that piece of advice, I wonder what are the most important things you try to teach your students, and what are the key things that you think they should be learning?
Um, I mean, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the course, UAL course, it teaches you the what the theatre is like. You research a production, you research throughout rehearsals, you put on the play, and you evaluate the work. But well, yes, we do develop obviously the skills and technique in terms of performance and production arts. But I think there are core skills that I want the students to develop in terms of things like their own creativity and that desire to be creative in whatever form that might take. But also, I think it's the desire for learning, which I think is really crucial, and I think it's something that I almost took for granted for a number of years in my career, and only reflecting back on it have I realised how much I learned throughout my training and then beyond, actually, from the various, as I said earlier, the various directors and practitioners that I've worked with, and for them to take that desire and have that desire for lifelong learning, to take every job, every project, every opportunity, and to kind of take something from it. I think that's it, really. That lifelong learning, that commitment to it, and to keep kind of developing themselves as artists and creatives.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. So, as they're developing themselves as artists, I think one of the kind of the more, I suppose, obvious things for them to do post this course of study is to look for a place at drama school where they can get that hands-on practical training as an actor. And obviously, we know there are many drama schools around the country, which each have their different processes and different ways of doing things. But I wonder if you could chat us through just how you would go about applying for drama school, how you might go about getting a place at one.
Well, firstly, I would recommend researching the various drama schools to find out which one is the best fit for you, because not every drama school is the same, whether it's location, whether it's the course content, whether it's the various techniques that they're offering as part of the student development. They are all different. So, I mean, speak to people, speak to students, current and past, and find out about these courses and find the best fit for you. Now, once you've found a few that are right for you, get your applications in and get preparing. I think ultimately everyone who's going to a drama school will be seen for an audition at some point. So there's no time like the present in terms of selecting material and rehearsing it and learning it and rehearsing it and learning it and rehearsing it. And I would find options as well. Don't be satisfied, and get people to listen to you, to watch you, to give you feedback. There is little point practicing on your own in front of a mirror, because starters, in a mirror you're backwards, and it's your voice sounds different to yourself, and you need that other person to give you tips and advice. So I would get a number of different options in terms of the pieces that you're going to be offering. Certainly in terms of your classical and your contemporary speeches, you want a range, and you want to have rehearsed them, and you want to know them like the back of your hand, because that is within your control. That is well within your control. And this applies actually as you go into the industry as well. You work, you you will succeed if you put the hours in. I think that's it. That's what I'm trying to say. So you need to, yeah, rehearse, and get that feedback and keep developing, and never be satisfied. And then once you get to that front door of that audition and you go in and sit down in front of that panel, that your speeches you don't have to worry about, because they'll be there, they'll be ready. But that you don't want to be going in there worrying that you don't know the lines, or that because that's just a small part of the audition process. They're getting to know you, they're getting to find out about you, and you want to be kind of totally focused on listening to the people on the audition panel and answering those questions, and without the fear that I don't know my Macbeth speech going through your head.
Lovely. But, again, I think, I pointed straight away to drama schools as the kind of, an option to becoming an actor. But we know that is not the only option open to young people looking for a career in the arts. I mean, you yourself said you went to university before you went to drama school. So I wonder if you knew of any other kind of ways into the profession outside of drama school, because that might not be the right fit for a young person.
As you just said, there are some universities now that have great performing arts courses that are very practical, that are industry linked, and have great practitioners as part of the course who also bring a wealth of experience. There are some people can go straight into the industry and set up their own theatre companies and go and sign on with extras agencies or small-scale touring opportunities. There are a number of websites around that offer acting opportunities for people who are starting out. And if you're not necessarily even an actor, but if you're wanting to develop your own plays and shows and things, then there are fringe events and things that you can, and taster nights at various theatres that are offered around the country, where you can try and get some work seen to get feedback. And again, by doing that, you're getting to meet people, you're networking, you're knowing people, and you're being creative and putting yourself out there. So drama school is not by no means the only way. Everyone's story is different. You talk to any one person about their route into the industry, and I do it all the time, and it's endlessly fascinating because no one's journey is the same. And if you're, I'll come back to it again, is if you work hard and you're committed and you keep pushing and plugging away, then there's no reason why you can't succeed.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Tom. So you are our artist of the week, so we're going to be seeing a lot more of you for the week. I wonder if there are just some highlights you'd like to point to coming up at all, or whether there's any kind of...
Well, I've just I'm sticking to my voice this week. I'm to doing some spoken word for the audiences of Wiltshire Creative Connects. I'm waiting for people to send in their poems of choice from ancient Greek right up to current time, and I will give my best interpretation of those texts that audiences can enjoy later on in the week. Yes. Oh, and also I think we're going to be previewing some of the student work over the coming days as well, which would be nice for people to see how they've been getting creative in this time of isolation.
Great, fantastic. I look forward to your reading of ancient Greek. A hidden talent, perhaps? No. Lovely, fantastic. Well, Tom, thank you so much. I really hope that there are some young people watching this who maybe might be considering the further education course. So just as a final note, Tom, imagine that I am keen to join the further education course at Wiltshire Creative. How might I go about doing that?
Well, as you said, it's a collaboration between us and Wiltshire College and University
Yes.
Centre, and their application portal is on their website, so you can go onto their website and follow the various links to the Salisbury Performing and Production Arts course, and you can register your interest there, make an application, and you'll be invited to come and meet me and have a little interview and audition, and you never know, you might be starting in September.
Lovely, fantastic. Here's hoping you are. Great, fantastic. That was a little direct message there. Thank you so much, Tom, for giving us the time today. I really can't wait to see what you get up to this week. And thanks for chatting.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes. All right. See you later.